I'm going to start by thanking you, Miss Brown. Greatly appreciate you having me and my co-presenters here to present. Um, I would like to call it a series on safety because I don't know if we'll be able to cover everything in 1 hour. However, we will touch on the various topics. I'm going to allow my co-presenter, Salih Shah, as he is known, to just give a brief backdrop of himself, and then I'll do my introduction. Mr. Shaw.
Greetings, everyone. Am I being heard okay? Good. Great. Yes, as Bobby said, I'll be very brief with my introduction. In my youth, approximately 30 years ago, I found myself incarcerated. And during that time, almost like in a movie, I ran across a mysterious stranger who, for whatever reason, took it upon himself to teach young brothers that were in that situation martial arts. But because of the restrictions of that type of practice in prison, he developed a way of teaching us very directly and very not in a roundabout. It was very much specific to our situation and environment. That shaped me into being the type of person when I was released that when I looked to further my martial experiences, I looked for people that had the same mindset as this individual. So for the past 10 years, I've been going around New York and interviewing those martial artists that I felt that came in that vein of practicality and modernization of martial arts, and compiling their information and putting together a system where I can disseminate that sort of martial arts to our people in our communities, where it doesn't take you 15 years to learn how to throw a punch or block a kick, but a very concept-driven teaching where, in what I call Brooklyn Arts of Advantage, where you come amongst the people and you're able to teach the concepts of martial arts so that no matter where you are in your development, you leave better than when you came in. Thank you.
Okay. So as Ms. Brown introduced my name is Bobby Jamal Muhammad. I'm called Jamal by my family and close friends because my father's name is Bobby, but the name is Bobby Muhammad. My background experience is in martial arts. I started out in martial arts when I was younger. My father was a martial artist. He was a practitioner of what they call Shotokan Karate. I really didn't graduate, not graduate, graduate and gravitate towards martial arts as my father stopped in his lack of teaching us. Anyway, let me fast forward. Several years back, almost 10 years ago, maybe now, or maybe 13 years ago, I met my teacher, who goes by the name of Professor Urban Muhammad, but he's a grandmaster. And he practices what's called Sanukis Ryu Jiu-Jitsu. It was a Black man by the name of Dr. Moses Powell, who is the founder of that particular style of martial arts. And that martial arts was really, he developed a way and a system in which taking martial arts as was previously known and creating a style that was face-to-face and urban style or warfare of martial arts that we can practice in the streets, face-to-face, close up, you know. And so that's really my background, in addition to me really, my profession is security. And I recently left a company known as RSAT Security, which is a high-end security company. My specialty was executive protection. I supervised the team. We were known for our specialty is martial arts, but we was known for, I would say, not just our professionalism, but our expertise in getting the job done. We never had any incidents. and we secured our principal perfectly well. So that's just a backdrop of the background of myself and Mr. Silas Shaw. Robert hasn't gotten on yet, so we're going to proceed without him. Now, I want to start by us taking a look. I would hope that you have a pen and a pad, because tonight we're going to do more, or really we're going to do a lot of verbalizing and trying to convey our message in a very clearest form and way. There's not going to be any physical demonstrations, as me and Mr. Shaw believe for this session. It's really not necessary. And so we're going to try to use clear language, precise language, and there's certain language that I really want you to key in on. And it's important because language is used to change the perception of reality and values. And also it allows a person to visualize an image in mind what the speaker is trying to convey. Language is also used for the communication of ideas or feelings by suggestion of objects, actions, and conditions associated with those ideas. And so whenever someone usually is given a speaking engagement or speaking, it conjures up visions or ideas in people's minds. But we really want to convey a practicality, or really, I say, you keep going off, a practical sense. Practical, this is a key term. Practical sense and way of being able to keep yourself safe and secure and protecting yourself. And so I'm laying a base right here. I'm laying a precursor, right? And I want us to take a look at the word safety, and I want us to take a look at the word safe. Because in the word safety, the key word is safe. And I'm going to read to you a dictionary definition, and then I'm going to give you a practical definition and what I believe it means to secure your physical person and your well-being. The dictionary says free from harm or risk, unhurt. It says secure from threat of danger, harm, or loss. It says successful at getting to that doesn't apply. Affording safety or security from danger, risk, or difficulty. This is key. I want you to listen to this. A place or receptacle to keep articles safe, right? The reason I mentioned that last part, because when you think of a safe, you use a safe to secure your most valuable assets, whether it's jewelry, whether it's money, whatever it is, but you consider it a very valuable and high asset. And there's no greater asset than the well-being of your physical person, your physical body. So we have to look at safety relative to the safeguarding protection of our physical body. And safety does not mean safety, or being safe and protecting yourself does not mean, as my teacher always teaches and always states, that it does not mean you wait for someone to put their hands on you, or you wait for someone to harm you physically, because you may not recover from that. And so safety means you have to be proactive in your thinking. It means that you have to be proactive when you're walking the streets, whether you're in a parking lot going to your car, whether you're leaving a party at night, whether you're walking the streets, whether you're on a subway. I'm going to use a couple of examples. One of the examples that I see, I don't take the train. I haven't taken a train in over 13, a long time, maybe in over 30 something years. I haven't really taken a train. I may have taken it once or twice in that time. But what I see, even from the last time I may have taken the train, is that, there's the yellow line that they have there. And that yellow line represents, or it's a symbol of safety. And it's telling you Don't go past that yellow line, as a safety measure to protect you. Most people, we disregard that. We stand so close to the edge, and no matter how much you look in that tunnel, you're not going to expedite the process of that train coming sooner. Even when you're at a bus stop, no matter how much you look down the street, you're not going to expedite the time or the process in which that bus is going to come sooner. So a lot of times we disregard things that are the best practices or measures for our own safety. We have in New York, we always see that people get pushed in front of a train or on the train track. One of the reasons is that we stand so close to the edge of the track that it makes it easier or easy for us to be pushed onto the track or onto an oncoming train. So that's not the best safety practices in order to protect yourself in that situation. You should always, if you're in a subway in particular, you should, at least if you're that close, have your back up against something solid that you can see, anything that's coming towards you or on the side of you. And you should always be using your peripheral. You should never take it for granted that, that nothing is going to happen, whether a police officer is on the track as well. Give me a second here. One of the other things that I want us to take a look at, and Ms. Brown, she was like emphasizing this, and it's being in the parking lot going to your car. And I'm going to say this because what I'm going to say applies not to just you being in a parking lot, going to your car, but these are tips that wherever you at or whatever you're doing, and especially, if it's at night, you should always try to be or park your car in an area that's well lighted, right? All your doors should always be locked. And even when you're entering your car, you should always be using your peripheral, even if you have to take a look around. Sometimes we know we're in an area where it's a high crime rate or cars are always being jacked. A lot of the times we wear earpieces or headphones, and we have the music so loud that we're not paying attention to someone walking up close to us, behind us. And many of the times that when we're focused on our music, our mind is not focused on really in a protective sense of worrying about anything around us. That's a bad habit. I have an earpiece that I wear and I listen to music like everybody else. I usually have on one. I usually have the volume low enough that I can hear what's going on from this ear, and I can hear what's going on even from the ear that I have that earpiece in, because I walk the streets with a proactive mindset. I walk the streets with a proactive mindset so that whenever I see someone coming in my direction, I can hear someone coming up from behind me or the side of me. I've been doing this so long that it just comes natural. But if I observe the body language of someone, that indicates to me that that person is looking for trouble, or if I observe that there's someone that, he's yelling, he or she is yelling and screaming and waving their hands or got an object in their hand, which I see on a daily basis, the bad thing that we do, most of us, we're going to still walk in that direction, and we're going to walk so close to that person, we'll be giving that person the opportunity to do us harm. And many of us don't know how to defend ourselves against whether it's a knife attack, if someone has a gun or whatever object they may have, and harming us. And so as I lay this foundation or the base, it's only a precursor, because really what we say here tonight, everyone should learn some sort of self-defense. It doesn't matter the style. I don't get off into what's better, what worked, and what may not work. Anything may work, in any given situation. You just have to know what you need, what action you need to take in that given situation. And we'll give a few illustrations of that. But I just wanted to lay the base because, we walk the streets really with a lack of responsibility of being proactive. So safety to me and protecting yourself to me means being proactive in your thinking, already knowing how when you walk the street. There was a young lady that came to my office today that I interviewed for a project that's coming up in about 2 weeks. She had a purse on, and she had her coat over the purse, and the coat was buttoned up. And so I had asked her for something that I needed to put in her file, and so she unbuttoned it and she said, "Oh man, it's just this is I don't know why I did this." And I stopped and I said, "You just reminded me of a presentation that I had to give tonight on safety." And I said, that is a proactive measure of safety that you may not realize, because it prevents someone from being able to snatch your purse. Two, if you get into a situation where you have to defend yourself, no one can grab your purse and just pull you down or anything, and your valuables won't be taken, while you're defending yourself. So that's a proactive measure that that individual, is doing. And so we have to take proactive measures or steps. I'm going to allow my co-presenter, Silas Shaw, to go on some things, because I believe he wants to also speak in reference to, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if it was you or Robert, on mental health issues, but I'm going to pass it over to you before I come back, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you. No, mental health, that's not me. But okay. Usually when I do this type of presentation, I always like to start how they taught us in school, with the common denominator. So I try to look at everybody that's involved, I can't see everybody involved, and try to figure out what is one thing that we all have in common. And in this room, even though we don't know each other, most of us, we can all say that the one thing that we all have in common is that we're all here. Now that may sound oversimplified, but if you think about it, not everybody is here. I don't mean they're not here because they were busy or they had something else to do. I mean, they're not alive. There are a lot of people that haven't survived to get to the point where we are right now on this call. So some of us on this line, we may not have any experience with martial arts. We may not have any experience with self-defense tactics or principles of personal defense. However, I'll offer you another way to look at that. If you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, and you're on this call tonight, what that means is that you know something. You know something that has gotten you this far in life that other people will never see this day. The key is to figure out what that is, because whatever it is that you have used up until this point to get here, that's your martial art, because it works for you. And the things that work for you and that have worked for you are sacred. Now, a friend of mine who is no longer here, he passed away, but he was a great martial artist. He had a saying that every man, every woman is their own style. But because we grew up in a commercialized world, that they make us think that protecting yourself, combatives, martial arts is what we see on television. We don't recognize our abilities, and we don't recognize our gifts, and we don't recognize our natural talents and tools for what they are, because we're expecting flips and kicks and karate chops. So we'll start with that. Number one, that's what we all have in common, that we're here. Number two, the other thing that we all have in common is that we were all once children. Some of us a long time ago, some of us may not like to think of those days when we were children. Some of us may have forgotten, but we all know that we were all children. And if you were a child, that means that you've had an experience with bullying. Maybe you weren't bullied, but you saw somebody being bullied, or perhaps maybe you were even the bully. And what I tell my children when it comes to that subject of bullying is that there is no such thing at any point in history, at any place in time, that you've had a bully that bullies everybody. It just doesn't exist. So the bully, I don't care if it's 6 years old, there is a calculation that they go through to determine who's going to be the object of their bullying. Now, here we are, we're adults. But what are adults but grown children? What are children but little adults? So as we have matured, guess what? The bullies have matured. But what does a mature bully look like? A mature bully is a rapist, a murderer, a person like Bobby mentioned that will snatch your purse, snatch your chain, take your check. That's a mature form of the bully. So the same thing that was true for the bully when he was a child, it's the same thing that is true for the matured bully. And that is what? No rapist rapes everybody. No chain snatcher snatches everybody's chain. No burglar runs in the first house just because he thinks it's a pretty house. There's always calculations that are going on. But those calculations are so quick and so beneath the radar that even the perpetrators are not aware of the calculations. I will give you a case study. In 1984, there was a study, an experiment called the Grayson-Stein study. And what these two scientists did was they set up cameras on the streets of New York and they recorded people just walking. The people were unaware that they were being recorded. And after they gained enough footage, guess where they took the footage? They took it into the penitentiary and they showed the footage to violent offenders, murderers, rapists, people who had assaulted others, what have you. And when they showed them, the purpose of showing the footage to these individuals was they wanted them to pick out those that they would accost, those that they would rob, those that they would rape, and those that they would leave alone. And they said it took an average of 7 seconds for them to determine who would be the victims and who would not be. But the problem occurred when the scientists gathered all of the data, and when they looked at it, it didn't make any sense. They didn't see a pattern. Scientists look for patterns. And when they looked at the ratio of who would be left alone and who would be attacked on the basis of what these criminals deemed weaknesses, they couldn't figure out why they picked who they picked, why they let alone who they said they would leave alone. So they took the data back to the convicts and they asked them to explain. And that even confounded them more because when they asked them to explain, they couldn't explain why they picked who they picked and why they chose to leave alone who they left alone. So that made the scientists' job even harder. So they went back and they started to analyze. And what they came up with were 5 things that predators and that violent individuals look for when they're seeking to victimize somebody. Now, keep in mind with these 5 things that they happen so beneath the surface of one's consciousness that these men didn't even know that they were looking at these things because it's natural. And one of the first things they looked at is what they called your stride, meaning how you walk. Now, I took notes because each one of these things can be a class in and of itself, and I don't want to get sidetracked. So I just want to touch on them and keep going. But when you talk about walking, that is an area that is so neglected. Think about again when we were children. A child is born, that child starts creeping up on 1 year of age and they're not walking, everybody gets nervous. And when the child does walk, it's a big celebration, everybody's happy. But guess what? For something that's so important as a child's first steps, once the child walks, nobody thinks about it anymore. You don't think about walking anymore until you get to be an old person and you can't walk anymore. Now it's back on your mind. But from the period of time when you're a child and you learn to walk, to all of those years in between, nobody really thinks about walking. Now, walking being such an intrinsic thing for human beings is something that naturally we pick up on. And so what a predator looks at is pace, walking too slow, walking too fast. You know this from watching the cartoons. Whenever they want to convey a lazy person or a shiftless person, there's a certain way that they draw the cartoon to make the person walk, because they want you to it's understood that you will understand what that body language means. So the same way you're in your living room and you understand what it means, the guy on the corner, he understands what it means too. Now, let me say this. Some would say what is the philosophy of faking it till you make it. This is what I'm not espousing, is to pretend that you're something that you're not. What I am saying is to being aware that there's certain things that we do that we are unconscious of that lead to us being singled out and victimized. And the first stage of change is to be aware of it. So the pace of your walking, the rhythm. Now, some of these I'm conflating, because the stride and the rhythm are two different things, but I'm combining them. So that's one thing a person looks at. Another thing they look at is what they call oneness. Actually, they call it wholeness. I call it oneness, meaning I like to say in my other classes that from your fingertips to your shoulder, there are 30 bones. Hopefully nobody in here has ever been like punched in the face or anything like that. But if you ever have been punched in the face by someone that knows what they're doing, it doesn't feel like you were hit with 30 bones. It felt like you were hit with one bone, a bat or a stick or a club, when a person knows what they're doing. That is a principle of human locomotion, let's say. Human motion is being able to move things, coordinating together. So when you watch an athlete, your favorite sports star or whatever, a boxer, that's what you're seeing. A person who has coordinated their body in such a way that they're able to move up the field or face an opponent with everything working towards that goal. So what predators see, I mean, you know, some people, when we walk like our arms are not connected to our body. We walk like our head, and that's one of the things that people pick up on. You look disjointed. And if you look disjointed, that means you can't offer up a coordinated defense or coordinated attack, because you clearly are uncoordinated. Another thing is fluidity. So you may have heard people speak about center of gravity, things like that. And I'm throwing these things out. Hopefully we will look into it, because as Mr. Muhammad mentioned about studying a martial art, if anybody, and hopefully everybody, decides to look into that, but remember that whenever you embark on anything, martial arts, marriage, business, whatever that is really founded on you. So if you're not prepared for that activity is not going to sit on a strong foundation, and it's going to have its flaws. So the things that we're talking about now, these are personal things dealing with our own basic core aspects of our lives. Like I said, coordination, fluidity, oneness, posture, and gaze. We all know that from when we're little. You know, your teacher knows when you're not paying attention by watching your posture. But like I said, we're grown-ups now. We don't have teachers, most of us. So, but there are people that watch your posture. So since other people are watching our posture, we need to watch our posture. And the last thing, when they say gaze, of course, that deals with the eyes. So I spoke about walking a second ago and how far back that goes to when, our first year of life. But the eyes and our eyesight it goes back even further, because when you're a baby lying on your back and your arms are not even working that well, your legs are not working that well, you're certainly not getting up to go anywhere, your eyes are working. So the relationship we have with our eyes is one of the oldest relationships we have with ourselves. But again, we go through our whole lives, we don't utilize our tools. That's when I said we all know something, we all have something too. We all have basic tools that other animals and other creatures use to defend themselves, and they use to aid them in our survival. We use our eyes and our hands, and we use it just to get to work and come home to eat dinner. But these are tools that help us get through life if we use them correctly. Back to the baby. When the baby is there, nothing else is working but the eyes are working. But do we realize that it's because of the eyes that the baby learns how to use his hands? Because it sees things that he wants to reach. The baby is looking around, and once it's looking and it starts to look behind him, that's why the baby turns around, because he wants to see what's behind him. Next thing you know, it's on his stomach. Then when it's on its stomach, he's looking up. He wants to see more. Now he gets on, he starts to crawl. And when you start to crawl, you see something across you. He's moving towards it. See, the eyes helped us develop ourselves, and it helps us now. So there's an experiment, and then I will pass this, that you can do. Like, like in New York, we have a dog feces problem. Some people have the habit of walking, looking down at the ground. It's a scientific fact that people who walk with their head down actually trip and fall more. You would think it would be the opposite, because they're watching what's right in front of their feet. But the eyes don't work that way. The eyes are made to see in the horizon, because when you see something, the eyes send a signal to the brain. The brain releases chemicals that prepares the body for what it sees. So I like to use the example of going to Coney Island. If you're walking on the asphalt, and from the asphalt you see the sidewalk, once you see the sidewalk, by the time you get to the sidewalk, your eyes have informed your body, and your body has already made the adjustments to go from asphalt to sidewalk. From the sidewalk, you see the boardwalk, which is wood. Your eyes, once they see the boardwalk, sends a signal to the brain. The brain releases the chemicals to prepare your arms and your feet and your toes and your bones for the transition of concrete to wood. From the same thing as when you see the wood from the sand, the same thing happens. Some of you remember, I know with my children, I remember the first time I took some of my children to the beach, and they freak out the minute their feet touches the sand, because even though their eyes saw it, they've never seen sand before, so their body wasn't able to calculate and rearrange itself to prepare them for the sand. So that's how we use our eyes. We're always looking and observing so that we could be prepared for what's going on. And those are the things that kind of organize us. And I know I didn't explain it a lot, but I'm just giving an example, because you walk into a dojo, they skip over these things because they don't know how to charge you for it. And because we don't know what we want when we go into a martial setting, they give us what we think we want, and what we think we want is what we see on TV. So what I try to do whenever I have an opportunity to speak, I try to give these little details that are often left out. But these are the things that have been getting us past through the days, all of our lives, using our eyes and knowing how to get from here to there. And these are some of the things that have gotten us into problems, not knowing how to use them. So I want to stop now, because like I said, all of these things are subjects within themselves. I don't want to just keep going on. So I'll pass it back to Mr. Muhammad.
I think Ms. Brown wanted to, and Jack, you wanted to say something, Ms. Brown? No? Oh, okay. And so part of what Mr. Shaw is speaking on is using your peripheral eyesight or vision when you're out in public. This is proactiveness. It's just a means of being proactive when it comes to your safety and well-being. Your posture is part of your physical body language. So if you look like you weak and you look like you could be taken advantage of, more than likely someone that's looking to take advantage of someone that's weak, um, they will do it. I know that for some of us that may be on here, and I'm going to share something with you that's personal. So right now I have a condition, so I'm not 100%. And at one point, I may have been 60-40, maybe just a year ago. And because I had suffered I had suffered what they call a diabetic ketoacidosis, and then something else had happened. And so, but yet when I was walking the streets, I camouflaged what I would deem my weakness, so that I didn't give off the type of body language that would represent that I'm easy to be taken advantage of. And I know there's some obstacles that we face, whether we're old or whether we have some sort of injury. The objective is, if you can, don't let it be visibly shown in your posture, if you can. And if you can't, it's fine. But if you have a cane, then you should learn how to use that cane. I don't care how old you are. You should learn how to use it. Because the same way someone who uses an object as a weapon against you, you should learn how to use whether it's a cane or anything as a weapon to defend yourself. And health is very important when we talk about safety and well-being, because if you're not healthy or unhealthy, 9 times out of 10, you may not be fit for the long haul of being able to contend with someone who's physically attacking you. Hold on. I keep going on out. But I also want to talk on, speak to, how do you deal with situations when you are being approached? Sometimes, a lot of times I see, we're approached sometimes by maybe it's somebody who's I guess I'm gonna have to use the term, begging. And sometimes they become a nuisance or annoying, and sometimes they could become verbally, violently aggressive. When you tell them no or you ignore them, this happens a lot. And they say, I'm going to read to you, right? Because this is part of verbal and non-verbal communication, which is very important. That 73855 rule indicates that only 7% of all communication is done through verbal communication, the words we speak, whereas non-verbal component of our daily communication, such as the tonality, that's the tone of our voice, right, make up 38%, and 55% from the speaker's body language and facial expressions. Why am I mentioning that? In a way of safety and being able to protect yourself. One of the things that I do if I'm in my car or I'm not in my car and someone is approaching me, whether it's they want money or something, usually my body language speaks first. I go, when I'm in my car, I shake my head and I do this. I'm indicating to them that I'm not interested. I don't want it. Sometimes they just acknowledge that and go on. Sometimes they won't. I crack my window just a little, and I'm trained. So even if I was to lower my window all the way down, they stick my hand in, I'm always ready, and I know what to do when that hand comes in, right? But the point is I crack it just a little because I'm being proactive. I want to avoid confrontation, irregardless of how well trained I am. So I want to avoid confrontation. And I would verbalize at the same time that I said, no, I'm not interested. So you're verbalizing through a physical body language, and you can verbalize verbally, but you have to be clear, very clear in your language, saying no, audible enough, no, so that the person can leave you alone. Um, when we're being approached, and I'm gonna use a gun situation before I go into the knife situation. I think I want to touch on that. I take it as most people on here is not trained in a way of how to defend yourself when somebody pulls a gun on you. I'm talking about close quarters, close range, where it's close enough where you can disarm the gun from some person. But whenever someone pulls a gun out on you and they're close enough to you, and even if they're not, you want to always try to position yourself or line your body up for safety. And that means you always want to project your body on a less vulnerable side, part of your body, um, to be shot. I'm going to use another personal example. When I was about 15, I was 15 or 16, I got shot. The person was going to shoot me in my back because the people who was with, or the other person he was with, we was being robbed. Me and some friends of mine, actually, we were set up. When I was young, I used to love to wear jewelry and stuff like that. We were set up, and it was about 1 a.m. Yeah, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I was like 15. And when the guy had the gun, he had the gun in my back, and I was up on the steps because, after they took what they took from us, they were sending us in the building one by one. I happened to be the last one. Guy had the gun in my back, and I heard the other guy, he didn't say shoot him, he said bust him. So when I heard that, I turned, I shifted, he shot. So the bullet hit me here, exited here, and hit me in my arm because I shifted. At that time, it wasn't necessarily that I knew to align my body in a way that gives the person with the gun less of a target or opportunity that would hit a vital organ. I was thinking about, if you're gonna shoot me, I'm turning around and I'm gonna try to get the gun. That's what I was thinking. But I got shot in the process of that. It saved my life, me making that shift, that turn. And so what I know now is that when I did that, I aligned my body in a position that didn't allow the shooter to shoot me in an area where it could have hit a vital organ, hit me in my back, paralyzed me, or killed me. So when you find yourself in a situation where someone has a gun on you, right? And I'm not suggesting that if you're not trained, I'm not suggesting that you try to take the gun from the person, because most of us that are not trained don't know what we're doing, and we end up getting shot. There was a situation on the train that happened a couple of months ago. Unfortunately, the person, I believe he died from that injury. He was shot in the head, and he was the one who pulled the gun. And the person he pulled the gun on somehow end up shooting him with the gun. And that person is not being charged because that person was defending themselves. And I'm a firm believer, and I stand on this, or as the young people say nowadays, I stand on business. But I stand on this, that I'd rather be judged by a jury of 12 than be carried in a box by 12 hands. So I stand on that. So it's best, again, that everyone learn some sort of technique or defense in a way of defending themselves. But awareness is very important. And you always want to position yourself or posture yourself in the safest manner possible. And you always assess the situation for the best action that you can take. And that's in any given situation. I'm going to speak to the women, the females that's on here right now, because I mentioned something about how the young lady that came in for the interview today, how she had her purse under. And I know, I'm not saying that, you know, for you, you know, to you, that you always have to be that. But that's the best measure of safety that you can take, especially if it's late at night and you're a female and you're by yourself and you choose, which I see this happen all the time. I see women and individuals choose to walk down the darkest street. We want to take a shortcut and where nobody at. We got a purse on, etc. You know, etc. And so we're putting ourselves in the worst scenario or situation possible that minimizes safety for us. And if we're not trained, you know, the worst possible outcome may happen. Just a few weeks back, there was the woman who was hit by a guy who was following her. He with the belt or whatever. He sexually assaulted her, but come to find out, this guy had been, I guess, stalking her prior to that. So the question is, if you know you have someone that's been stalking you prior to that, why didn't she take, or any individual take, proactive steps to prevent that situation from happening? And so that's what we're trying to convey to you, you know, because we're not doing a physical demonstration. I'm going to try to convey without doing a physical demonstration because I don't have no one here and I don't necessarily need no one here. But when you're approached with someone with a knife and their close quarters up on you, right? I mean, it's close quarters. They're close up on you. You know, my teacher always say that, man, no one should ever be able to grab you and put a knife to your throat. Unfortunately, you know, it happens and people are not alert or aware. I don't even allow people to tap me. And trust me, I'm ready to do something when they touch me. They may catch a bad one. It's just something that I don't like, because when you touch me, I don't know what you're touching me for. So that touch alerts me that I need to take action. I know of a situation by somebody that was well trained. He used to walk close to buildings. And so a situation happened. He was walking close to the building. And when he reached the edge of the building, somebody came around and he hurt them real bad. I mean, he physically really hurt them. And so he said from that, he was very well trained. He said from that situation, he no longer walks close to the building. He walks a little out so that as he's coming out, he can see what's coming that way. See, those are proactive steps of safety that we can all learn from and that we should take in our daily lives. But back to that communication, that physical body language. We're able to see other people's body language, and sometimes it's a straight giveaway that they're looking for problems or they're looking for trouble. So why would we walk into that? I see this as a daily occurrence. I'm guilty of that. And I was only guilty of that up until a situation happened and I could have probably killed that person. But I was guilty of that. You can call it ego or whatever, because I'm trained. And I was like, I wish this would. And he did. And I had to perform. But after that, I hurt myself. I injured myself in that situation. But I got injured in that situation. But after that, I thought to myself that that was ego. And I learned from that never to do that again. Cross the street if I have to, walk around the block if I have to, take another course because I want to avoid that confrontation at all costs, because I'm thinking proactively, safety, you know. And just because somebody is trained doesn't mean you may come out of that situation without injury, you know. So that was a learning lesson for me. And so now, whether it's somebody that may have a mental disability, because it was somebody who I believe may have had a mental disability when I had looked back on it. And he definitely attacked me, and I performed, you know, just straightforward. I had a situation where I was in a subway. Somebody pushed me out the way to get on the train. When they pushed, I grabbed that person and I put him down. But that person was with like 3 other people. So I ended up having to deal with all 3 of them. I came out victorious. I'm very well trained. Um, I'm only mentioning that not to brag or boast about what I can do on my training, but it could have been much worse for me had not I been alert that, you know, just paying attention to my surroundings with my peripheral, you know, after I put this person down. And when the other, it was 3 more individuals came at me, you know, I was able to respond, you know, just like that. And so awareness and consciousness, you know, we have to, you know, ingrain that in our thought process, because safety or protecting yourself does not mean waiting until someone put hands on you or you are attacked. When you see that there's an imminent threat of danger, you either try to get out the way of that danger, whether it's crossing the street, whether it's taking another route, you should try to avoid it. But if you can't, and you know it's an imminent threat of danger and they're coming towards you, then you're gonna have to, you know, take some sort of action to safeguard yourself. And I emphasize training. I emphasize training. My teacher used to always stress this. He used to say, "I'm not teaching you how to fight. Everybody swear they know how to fight. I'm gonna teach you how to defend yourself." But I believe in that he was also teaching me how to fight, no matter how well I thought I knew how to fight, even though I have a background where my mother, uncle, he taught me and my brothers boxing. On my father's side of the family, every last one, with no exaggeration, of his brothers, cousins, was all into martial arts. Every last one was into martial arts. So me and my cousins, we had no choice because our parents, our fathers was into that, and they was into that heavy. So I grew up, you know, with some sense of knowing how to defend myself. And I wasn't the greatest when I was younger, but you know, we have to pay attention. We have to pay attention when we're walking the streets, when we're out late at night, um, to our surroundings, to people. We know that. I mean, we should know that if there's a group of individuals um, in our line of uh, the line of our walking, and if they sound unruly, or your instinct tell you, you know, that there's going to be trouble, don't walk into it. See, we're trying to convey the best safety practices. See, it's not about just you learning how to defend yourself. It's the best measure of safety practices. And the best safety practice, if you can, is to avoid the situation or the danger. Because even if you feel that you are justified, and you may be justified in taking a life, you know what it comes down to? It comes down to the DA examining the situation and deciding whether or not you were in the right or wrong. That's what it comes down to. And every situation does not end the same. Even if you were in the right, even if you was in the right, every situation does not end the same, and it's going to be based on how your attorney presents your situation or your defense, and how the DA may be trying to make it seem. So if you can avoid danger, if you can avoid situation, I would say do so. But back to the knife situation, if someone approaches you with a knife and you're, I have to say that really, if you're trained, then you would know that, if you don't grab the knife or the blade of the knife, you're going to cut yourself, right? And if you have to grab, or if you can and you grab it, you want to grab, here's the knife. You want to grab here with your hands over the knuckle part and the thumb tightly. And you want to, you want to be able to, that wrist, take it in a direction past the point where it's supposed to go, that you can break it when you do it, but at the same time, you can take that knife out of their hand without cutting yourself. And so, you have to have training in order to do that, because nobody just holds a knife at you, right? So the best practice for that is that you always want to align your body posture in a way that presents less damage to your person. There's a saying that practice makes perfect, right? I like to say this, and I had it just printed out for me, right? Because I like to say that your effectiveness and your efficiency produces the excellence. I call it the triple E's, right? RSAT had a thing where they had triple E's, right? And I say that because the more effective you are at being able to defend yourself from a knife attack or a gun attack or any attack, produces effectiveness and efficiency go hand in hand, but being effective comes first. Efficiency relatively mean I'm just going to read to you what I have here, right? Because it's really the optimal efficiency is about doing things in an optimal way. For example, doing it the fastest or in the least, it says expensive way, but I would say in the least way that minimizes you having to do something for a long period of time, right? But effectiveness, that means really being able to do it right. Being able to do it right, and you want to be able to do something right first and foremost, because we can show you a technique or two that you can literally walk out of here or a dojo and you can use that. Literally, it doesn't take you a week or two just to know it. You may not be as efficient or proficient at it, but it's something that you can use and it'll work for you and immediately. However, the more you practice at what you're taught or trained at, you become better at, and it produces your excellence. And that's where the practice, makes perfect. So we're not trying to convey theory, and as much as we're trying to convey practicality and practical methods or measures that you can use. But safety to me, in my humble opinion, it means being proactive in your thought process. It means that you should be taking up some sort of training. It means that you should be doing some sort of exercise to keep yourself healthy. That doesn't mean you have to lift weights. It just means you need to find something that you can do and that you feel comfortable with, but it help produces good health for you, you know. Let me just give me a second. Handbags. I think we've covered that. Yeah, you know, Ms. There are some of the areas here that I believe we need to do another presentation on. But for the most part, even covering these areas, and I'm going to be very honest with you, you have to take, and I'm saying this to everyone on here, you have to take some sort of training, defensive training classes. You have to. Because if you can't properly defend yourself, you don't know how to defend yourself. In most cases, you won't be able to defend yourself. You know, most people, we panic. Most people panic when somebody pulls a gun on them. Most people panic if somebody pull a knife. We try to run, which isn't the best thing that you can do if you're not like, a block away from the person. And so you need to take some sort of classes of defense, and in particular, when it comes down to knife and gun, in those areas that you know how to defend yourself against a knife attack or gun attack, because it'll be a close counter situation, and you're gonna have to know how to, if the person got a gun to your head or to the back of you, most of us, like I said, panic, or we do something that really keeps our body in the line of fire, and we'll end up getting shot. Mr. Salashar, do you have anything to add with that? Then we can open the floor for questions.
Yes, real quick. Just 2 words: intent and attitude. Everybody's heard of Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee reportedly said that it is easy to teach a person to be skillful, but it's very difficult to teach a person their own attitude. Examples I like to use is, we're talking about guns, we're talking about knives. The young people, or the people, period, that are out there with guns, you never hear that they are sharpshooters. You never hear that they go to the range and they practice shooting. You never hear that they've, come out of the military and they actually know what they're doing. But what makes everybody so fearful is the intent. You have people, a lot of them are young people, they have guns and they will use them. So it's not so much the gun, it's the mindset, the intent. The same thing when, I know a few years ago, everybody was talking about the knockout game, where they said you had people going around knocking out strangers. Again, you never heard that these guys were on the boxing team. You never heard they were Olympic athletes. You never heard that they had any type of training. It's just the fact that you had people walking around with the thought in their mind to knock out strangers. That was enough to have the whole city on edge. I even have friends that are martial artists that were teaching how to survive knockout game classes. So what I'm saying is that we as citizens, we have to hone our attitude. We have to want to survive and get home at night even more than they want to do what they want to do. Because sometimes that's all it comes down to. When you see fights in the street, or if you go on, I don't even know if they still got World Star, but on the internet, I don't know if I've ever in my life seen a fight where both people knew how to fight. Most times you see fights, neither one know how to fight. So what it really comes down to is one's will over the other's will. One just overpowering the other. And I'm saying all of that to say how important it is to hone our intentions on survival. Everything we do is based off that. You can learn as much techniques in martial arts as you want, but if it's not founded on the right attitude, you're going to freeze. So that's something that we can all do without spending any money, without going anywhere, is work on our own attitudes for survival. Even these police, that when they shoot our people, what do they say? And they let them go home because they say that. They say, I feared for my life, and all I was thinking about was getting home to my family. That resonates with people. That's why I don't want to say that's why they let them go, but that has a lot to do with why people see where they're coming from. And I'm not going to use my time here to speak on that phenomenon of police shooting our people, because my job here is to express that attitude. You have to want to go home just as bad. You have to want to survive just as bad. Now, that word we keep using, martial arts. Understand this. There are 3 levels to this. Martial arts. Martial arts is a beautiful thing because it's an art. Like painting flowers and learning to play the horn, or ballroom dancing. It's an art. When you go to self-defense is not as beautiful. And then when you go to survival is not beautiful at all. The only thing beautiful about survival is the beauty of getting home at night and saving yourself pain and loss of life. So understanding the different levels of personal defense. In the beginning, I mentioned that a project that I had. Over 10 years ago, I started going around interviewing Black martial artists, but certain kinds of Black martial artists. And it wasn't just interviewing them, I did a lot of research as well. And at a certain point, I came to a realization that the fight is more than what we think it is. The example I like to use is you can have a great boxer and the world follows him, and the world marvels at his skill and his abilities and the ability to hold on to the title or maybe lose it and get it back. And we hold him as one of the greatest of all time. And then you see when he retires from boxing, he starts gaining weight. He starts smoking cigars. He starts drinking heavy. We might have to reevaluate that person. Maybe you weren't the great fighter we thought you were. Maybe you were just a great boxer. Because the fight doesn't stop just because one aspect of your life stops. We have to have the fight all the way until there's nothing left. Meaning, especially as we start to get older and we start putting on weight, do we not have enough fight to fight off the weight? We start finding ourselves getting stiff. Stiffness means death. You have plants in your house and your plants start getting stiff and brittle, your plants are dying. But we allow that to happen. Where's the fight? We get older and we see new technology coming on and we just let it pass us by. All of these things are signals that we give into our bodies that we're giving up, that we're not trying to live. And if we're giving those signals to ourselves, what type of signals do you think we're giving off when we're walking in the street or we're in the subway or we're standing on the line? People pick up that we've given up. And we are 75% water. Water takes the path of least resistance. A criminal, he's not going to go after the person that's going to put up the most resistance. So those ways in which we give up, those ways in which we've stopped fighting, that can be picked up by other people. Something I wanted to say about, and also understand, because like Mr. Muhammad and I keep saying that everybody should at some point take up some type of physical training to protect themselves, defend themselves. But understand that there are no guarantees. Somebody could deliver at your front door the biggest, most powerful gun made, and that's not a guarantee. Police walk around with radios and batons and bullets and guns and bulletproof vests, and some of them don't make it home. If there was something out there that guaranteed that you would never take a loss, you would never be accosted and lose your life, none of us would be on this call right now because we would all be in line trying to get that thing. So what I do is called the arts of advantage, because that's all these things are. Advantages. The person that has the gun, they carrying the gun because they feel the gun gives them an advantage. The person has the knife because they feel the knife gives them an advantage. But those who are familiar with martial arts may have heard that martial arts is 75% mental, 25% physical. Some even say 90% mental, 10% physical. But when you don't know anything about combatives, that just doesn't make sense, because you're seeing people do all of these things physically that you can't do, and you say, no way, that can be just 10% of what I have to learn. But the reason why it's only 10% because or 75% is because none of it works if you're not looking at this thing right. And this is what we try to do when we have these groups, is just to get the thinking to just change trajectory a little bit more towards survival. And then you'll find you'll start making decisions that are survival-orientated decisions. You'll start taking better care of what you're eating, because this is our first line of defense, the body. And again, when we're not taking care of the body, people that prey on other people, they pick that up, that you're not taking care of yourself. You don't care, they not gonna care. So I just wanted to touch on those things because, again, I've seen it so many times that we have the opportunity to teach our people, and we start doing all of these things that we know the people are not going to be able to do. And people leave no better than when they got there. But again, people don't know how to monetize concepts. So they leave the concepts alone, and they teach all of the stuff to make you feel like you're learning something. But if you can't do it, you haven't learned it. But if somebody can tell you to exercise a certain mindset, and that makes sense to you, you walk away with a better mindset. You're better than when you came in. And I just wanted to this little portion, I guess, before we go into questions, I just wanted to throw that and leave that, and hopefully it'll take root somewhere. Thank you.